All right, welcome to Words of the Wise. Today I have Lance Parker. He is a superintendent of Edmonton Police in Canada. He has over 22 years experience on the job, and I'm really excited for him to join us. He has such an amazing story to share. So, welcome to Words of the Wise, Lance Parker. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited to talk about you and your experience. And quick little side note, you are the first person who I've had on the show who's not from the US.
What a privilege. Thank you very much.
You're going down in history.
I am going down in
First
history. That's awesome.
international podcast. I love it. Well, I want to jump right in and give a little background. What inspired you to get into law enforcement?
It's actually a pretty funny story. I have a couple of degrees, and I got an environmental hydrogeological technology degree as in the environmental world. Um, I didn't really like the career path that I was going down, and it was a friend of mine that suggested he was going to go apply for the Edmonton Police Service that I should maybe consider it with him. So I did. And I went through and I was successful my first time. This was back in September of 2002. And he wasn't successful. And he ended up becoming a sheriff. We have sheriffs in Alberta as well as like you guys have in the States. But yeah, so I just joined just because a friend kind of encouraged me. And yeah, the rest is history now. I've had a phenomenal career over the last 22 plus years with the Edmonton Police Service.
That's awesome. And I always say like sometimes things happen by chance, but I also don't know if I personally believe in chance. I think that you do end up where you're supposed to, and that might be a testament to like maybe it was like you didn't anticipate this being your career path, but you ended up right where you should be.
Yes, I agree. And like the only really policing experience my father was in corrections, and that's it. I don't have any other relatives that are anywhere near the policing world. So yeah, I agree. I definitely ended up where I was meant to be. So
And can you tell me, 22 years ago, what did wellness look like for you? How did you view wellness? How did the organization view wellness? Did it look different than it does now?
it looked completely different. I started a little bit later in life, so I was 30 years old when I joined. Um, and yeah, like I've had over my years, my careers kind of span between two kind of streamlines. I was operational for, more than half of my career, and then I was also in the drug and gang world for half of my career. Um, but when I first started, it was, I think, 2 years in, I was involved in a car chase that ended with two 17-year-olds that were crashed into another car and they ended up dying on the scene. It was pretty grotesque. And that was truly my first experience with that kind of trauma, mental trauma. I didn't know what truly to expect on how I was going to heal or how the service was going to look after me. Back in September or back in 2004, uh, you were given 3 days off and then you were brought back to work and put into a patrol car and away you went. And I still remember to this day it was my first night back, and I ended up seeing another stolen car in the exact same spot where the chase started with the two teenagers that passed away. And I remember it went through a red light, and I remember almost standing up in the car like I was like this thing's going to crash again. I'm going to see the exact same thing I saw 3 days prior. And I just kind of worked through it on my own. That's what you were left to kind of deal with it on your own. And um, so it was kind of, I had great supports outside the police world. And that's truly what I leaned on was family and friends. And I think that's what got me through that original incident. As my career goes on, people like to use the phrase that I attract a lot of bad things. So through my career, I ended up having 20 plus critical incidents where I've been to some of
Wow.
the worst events that I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen how we've grown to the point where we have a reintegration program today that is known worldwide. That we have members traveling all over the world to help train other services on how to reintegrate officers back into, to get back into their career. When I started, I always said I wanted to leave this career after 25 years. little older, fatter, balder, but I wanted to be the same person that I walked in. And that's truly what my goal is to try to walk out of here the exact same way I walked in. So,
Yeah. And it's amazing that one, you've made it this far and it seems like you have wellness integrated now into your agency, but it's also, a testament because I've had so many conversations where it's like we had to experience those things and you had to go through those things without resources to progress to where we are now, learning from the past to hopefully make some forward progress. I know you said that you leaned on people outside of this profession in the beginning. What were some of the things that you did for yourself that really helped you? And do you now use those things and like teach other people in your organization those things?
yeah, a lot of it is physical fitness. So I'm into the gym. It's gotten probably almost like an addiction now where I'm in the gym 12 to 14 times a week. But I kept, like they tell you, keep your friends outside of the police world. Like, don't
Yeah.
make the policing world or the first responder world your whole life. And I did. I played hockey, baseball, um, with friends and family that have nothing to do with the police world. So I could just leave that world behind and just kind of go and be myself and I think that's truly what happened. I remember the event and I remember my friends were in a baseball tournament. So I went out and played for the tournament and just take your mind away from and just so that you can kind of start healing and I find that yeah, the physical fitness definitely helps your mental fitness, right? I think
100%.
those two, and I know I've watched your previous, and they are together, those two, because I find that that's truly what grounds me is when I'm doing my physical fitness, and I truly believe that helps my mental fitness.
I love that you said grounds you because that was something I was thinking about when you were also talking about having a network outside of law enforcement as a way to ground you. It takes you back to like a space of quote unquote like normalcy of having, these connections outside of law enforcement that help you to feel like you as a person outside of the job. And then I 100% agree, physical and mental wellness go so hand in hand. And I think that a lot of people forget that. When we talk
Yeah,
about mental wellness, it's like sometimes you just need to start with physical fitness, and that helps your mental health so much. And it maybe it isn't the end all be all the time. There are other resources that you can, reach for the mental health aspect of things. But it does impact your mental health. And when you're working out, you feel happier and more clear and more
yeah.
present and in the moment. So I love that you said grounding, and I completely agree that physical fitness does impact your mental health.
Yes, and like I said, like everyone likes to have that first responder friend because when you're sitting around a campfire, they always have the coolest campfire stories.
Sure.
But with your friends, if they know you well enough, they know that you want to get removed from that world, right? And just be yourself and what you were when you were growing up with them. And that's truly the friends that I have that I just go and we just laugh and have an absolute great time. And it just, that's truly what got me through originally through the first critical instance I've experienced through my career. So,
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know
yeah.
that you said that you went through an incredible amount of critical incidents throughout your career. Can you share like one defining moment that really shaped your perspective on not only your wellness, but also organizational wellness?
Yeah, like I'll kind of lead up to the one, but because we had a few over the last few years, just like the whole world, we ended up COVID hit and no
Mhm.
one knew anything about COVID. And I was we call it a staff sergeant role in a division in the city of Edmonton as a police officer. It was such a weird experience. I was like trying to isolate from my family and friends and then still I worked every day just to make sure that I served the people of Edmonton. And then after that, we ended up having the Black Lives Matter movement and the defund the police movement for something that happened truly thousands of miles away from the city of Edmonton. It affected us the same way as it did across the world. I was in our public safety unit, which is our, I guess, riot squad, just trying to keep Edmonton safe. And for 8 hours straight, I was told that I needed to kill my kids, I should kill myself, and then going to work the next day. That was my first true experience with that we needed to help our members out the next weekend. And we're saying, like, how do we put these members through this again? Like, and try to keep them professional. Like, we don't want any members to, use excessive force just because they're mentally getting beat up. That's where we brought in an actual this Sergeant Colleen Mooney, and she provided kind of just a mental break at the beginning. We had a briefing, and it was just everyone, like, I can't remember what she called, but everyone take some deep breaths, close your eyes, like, just, and it was absolutely phenomenal. It was well received. You could tell that the temperature of everyone went down, and we went out and did a phenomenal job. What I think people don't realize with first responders is that we're taking on all this trauma, but yet we still have we're not robots. We still have a home. We still have family. We still have friends. My father passed away. Like, it was just other pressures that, like, but still I went to work and I did my job. But I think a lot of people forget that point. Of course, that keeps going. We ended up having a riot that we've never ever seen in the city of Edmonton. It was an Eritrean riot, pro-government versus anti-government. We've never experienced that here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I remember hearing members after we had a debrief, and a member came up to me and told me that they were scared. And I'd never heard that from an officer before. When I first started, would never admit that you were scared because that's just the way it was. Of course, the riot, and then we come into, and it's good timing for this podcast, but we're coming up to the anniversary date of March 16th, 2023. I was an inspector then. It's a duty officer, we call it, and you're basically chief of operations. You're in the office command post, and you're also drive around, and you're basically in charge of every member that's working. If it's nights or weekends, you are the highest rank, and it's you, and you're the decision maker, and any critical incident you attend and you kind of command it. March 16, 2023, worst night of my life. I was just normal, hanging out with a classmate from September 2002. We're having coffee, and my phone rings, and it's our communications department. And they advised me that they're getting several calls of two officers that have been shot. I was on the other side of the city, and I thought, okay, I'm miles away, but okay, we need to call 1013, which is officer needs assistance, send every car available. And I started to drive there. I didn't realize technically where I was. I was on a major thoroughfare. So I hit one set of lights. Next thing you know, I'm at the scene basically when all the cars are arriving. When I get there, I end up having to assist our members by getting our members out that were just executed, get them into cars, ambulances, and get them to the hospital. As I go back in to assess the scene, I come out, and that's the first time in my career where I could see the pain. Like, out of hundreds of officers sitting there staring at me, the pain. And I remember they all were staring at me, and that's the first time in my career as a boss where I turned around and then I turned back and I thought, oh, they're looking at me. So I got to look after them. So that's where I kind of put my feelings to the side and then just went into a commander's role because I had to. Again, I'm a little bit older. It's like looking at your kids. I'm like, okay, I got to go into dad mode here. And I had a lot of members that were like just watched family and friends. Like, they're not just coworkers, they're our family. So I had to, like, take control of everything. I put members in positions that have affected their careers, their mental well-being, and it's decisions that I made that I would make again in a critical incident because we just have to. We have a job to do. We have to get through it. Prior to that, I should back up. I remember going to a conference, and there was an officer that had to fight for his life, and he almost died. And he was up on stage speaking, and it was just a year after this event took place. And I remember him, and I kind of took that away where he says, like, I had to focus on the task. I had to focus on, like, staying alive, and then I was going to look after my mental well-being after. And I thought that was a good message. So I didn't know I was preparing for March 16th. But in September, when I came back, I started to attend all the parades and just speaking to all these young folk. Hey, just if something ever does happen, Just remember, just treat it like any other scene and any other task. Focus on that, and then we'll focus on your mental well-being after. I had no idea I was preparing for that day. So that's what I did. I put everything aside. I moved members. A lot of members left, went to our headquarters where we had psychologists, psychiatrists, pastors, our chiefs, deputy chiefs. We had obviously catering and just get everyone together. They can start that healing process. Where I failed and where I admit that I failed is that I thought I was good. So I stayed at the scene until 8:30 in the morning. This happened around just before 1 in the morning. I finally got someone to come to the scene and take it from me because I was done. I was mentally exhausted, uh, physically exhausted. I hadn't eaten, drank anything. Um, and truly, like with the weight of that one event happening, halfway through it, I get a phone call from comms telling me there's another shooting downtown Edmonton. So you just add to the stress. I'm like, oh my God, like, okay, I'll try to figure this out. And we did. It turned out that it wasn't what it was originally thought to be. But I remember that I don't remember driving back to the station to get changed. I don't remember if I talked to anyone. I remember changing out of my uniform, driving home on a highway, and then just having to pull over, and I absolutely broke down because I didn't have to be strong anymore. There was no one around me. I could just be a human being, and I broke down. I remember getting home. There was no one at home except my dog, um, and I couldn't sleep. My phone was going off like crazy. Everyone's checking on you, see how you're doing. I couldn't sleep, so I got back up, and what did I do? I went back to work. So I ended up working 37 hours straight, no food, no water, nothing. I truly believe what helped is I had a ski trip planned for the 2 days later with another few fellow officers. And they were asking me, do we want to cancel this trip? And I thought, no, I think if anything, I need this trip more than anything. And it was a fantastic idea. We just went, we hung out, it was, the timing couldn't have been better. I came back to work. I never took a day off until August. I never sought any help. Um, I was more concerned about everyone else. So I attended parades. I rode with people that truly needed help. I helped with the reintegration program where one female officer couldn't go back to the hospital because that was her memories. She was there standing over one of our fallen officers, and that's all she just couldn't go anywhere near that hospital. So I spent 4 days with her circling the hospital, parking it, finding another officer to walk her through the hospital because I never made it to the hospital, so I had no ties to it. So I brought an officer that was there, and we ended up getting her over that mental stress. I thought I was good. I thought, okay, I got this, no worries. It wasn't until I was working out at a gym and one of some young gentlemen didn't wipe down his mats. I told him to wipe his mats down. He kind of says something to me, and that's where I don't remember. All I remember is going nose to nose with him, and in my head, I was going to hurt him and hurt him bad to the point where I scared my wife. She'd never seen that in me. Thank God, I don't know what clicked in my mind. I kind of came back and thought, okay, something's wrong, and I needed help. And that's when I sought out professional help. And when I started in September 2002, you'd never admit that you sought professional help.
Right.
March 2023, I am proud, and I am proud today that I seek professional help. I would tell anyone and everyone that I seek professional help because like I said, the word grounded, it has grounded me. It has made me stronger. It has gotten me through like the worst possible night of my life. Um, so working with her, I was able to get through because what I find in policing and first responders generally is that we really look after nowadays. We really look after officers, our constables, our sergeants. And then for some reason, we kind of forget about the commanders. So I always use a term, and with my professional psychologist, I always say, like, I'm walking alone. I feel like I'm so alone. And I truly did, because the squads could get together and get together and talk, and they had charity baseball games, and they had golf tournaments, and I was just never invited, because the higher you go, the lonelier it gets, and it truly was. So I kept working through it. We have reintegration, and for some members it was mandatory, and some it was voluntary. So they finally reached out to me and they said, were you willing to do this reintegration program with us? It's voluntary. And I said, yes, I want to see what this is about. I want to take part in this. And it was, taking me back to the scene. We have a helicopter. It had the video, not of the actual shooting, because the shooting took place inside an apartment, but everything else. So, getting the officers into the emergency vehicles, taking them to the hospital. And I watched that video, and I watch a lot of videos. We have a lot of, car chases and dog bites. I watched that video and I could only ever watch it once. And I couldn't believe how much it affected me. But I did the whole program, and that truly is what also helped me get through this. Policing has changed, leadership has changed. So after about 11 months, we did a debrief. We offered it to every officer in the EPS to attend. We rented this massive community hall. We said, officers, come. We are going to do a debrief on exactly what happened. And then they asked me if I would speak at them. And I took the opportunity to speak at them. I spoke at 6 of them. And the first one was tough. It was standing in front of your peers, people you look up to, the people you commanded and were the strong figure for them. And I broke down. But I needed that. Like, I needed to show everyone that we're vulnerable too. As leaders, as commanders, we're not robots. It affected me the same way it affected everyone there. So I was able to get through all 6. It was tough. And then after that, again, I was at another conference, and there was a gentleman from the United States that spoke about how he went through a critical incident. So now he's talking to the recruit classes just to let them know not every day is going to be a sunshine day, that there's going to be some tough days ahead. And I thought that was a fantastic idea. So I've done it once with our recruits. I go in, I speak to them, I broke down again talking about it. But it's just, again, how do you prepare? I'm looking at this class of recruits of 50. Majority of them are in their early 20s. How do you prepare them? They're not military background. They're engineers. We have a pastor. We have a steel worker. We have that. How do you prepare to see the possible worst thing of your life? And I said, even when you think about it, it's 100 times worse. It's not like watching the movies. You're going to have the smells. You're going to have the feel. I don't know how to prepare them. So even just talking about it, I hope it just gets them ready I hope to God we never have one more of these events. We'd be naive to think it won't happen, but I'm trying to think of how we prepare these young folks. And what I see happening in policing now, and very grateful for there's people like you that are doing this mental wellness podcast and just trying to get the information out there, because I see us in 5-10 years where our mental wellness, it's going to be more prevalent. We're going to see more first responders off with it, suffering from mental illnesses. We're an organization of about 3,000 sworn and non-sworn members. We're at 10% are still off, like whether it be mental wellness or other reasons, but 10%, like that is a
A
large number.
lot.
And
Yeah.
I see it I don't see it getting better anytime soon, just because first responders world has changed. It has completely changed. You look in Los Angeles, those fires, the wildfires, like just massive, massive events. And yeah, I don't know what else. I seem like I'm rambling on here,
No,
but
you're
I'll
not.
take a break just so you can ask some questions. So
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for sharing and being vulnerable. And I think that was one of the words that came up so often is you are a human being. And regardless of your role within the organization, these things are going to affect you one way or another. There's no really avoiding it, especially when it's something that heartbreaking. And I don't know the answer to the question of how do we prepare these young men and women for those events. And that was one of the reasons I got into this space working with law enforcement in the first place. I had a moment where I was working at an academy and I had that same realization. And obviously, I'm an outsider coming into this, but this was, 8 years ago, and that class was so young. They were 20, 21 years old, and I had worked with them quite a bit and got to know a lot of them. And I was watching scenario training and had that realization of like they are preparing for the worst. And it's not if, it's when, and it's how frequent and how severe. And how do you prepare for that? And law enforcement is such an incredible career that most people can't do. It's a testament of mental resiliency, of mental training, and the fact that you are able to compartmentalize in that moment and say, I have a job to do. I can't let my emotions get the best of me. I have to be there for my people. That's an incredibly hard task to ask of anybody.
yeah,
And I don't know the answer of how. I do think that one of the things that you touched on that I thought was really interesting, and I don't know if you realized it, is that you're like, maybe I was like from that moment where you heard that speaker saying I was preparing or trained for that moment. And I think that there is a certain level of mental training that can happen proactively
yeah,
that can help. Um, and then of course, as reactive measures, we also have to have resources, post critical incident that are going to be helpful because you have to have both.
yeah,
You can't just have one. You have to have both. And one of the resources it sounded like you guys used was some breathing techniques,
yes,
post critical incident, which is wildly helpful in a very short amount of time. So taking a few breaths to regulate the nervous system and, down regulate after a critical incident. It's also something that you can train beforehand. But I think another thing that was really, that kind of stuck out to me is you talking about one, like you said, I don't, I don't want to like phrase it in the wrong way, but you said, I'm here to take care of the people who really needed the help, but you also really needed the help.
I did.
And
Yes,
so like that comment, I think that again, it's a testament to this profession because it is, you're always in service of others. And I think that, in this space, you forget that you also need to take care of you. And
yes,
and it's equally as important. You want to take care of your people and that's your job and you care about your people,
yeah,
but you also have to care about yourself because you can't lead if you're not also taking care of you. And so I have had conversations before with leadership where they say that, it's like, where do I go? What do I do? Like, I have to be strong for everybody else. It is lonely at the top. I don't feel like I can really go up and I can't really go down. And so, how do I take care of my wellness too? And so, I think it is for anyone who's listening, in leadership or otherwise. Yes, take care of other people, but you have to take care of yourself too. And I've heard this analogy of like, put your oxygen mask on.
yeah,
Like
yes,
you
yeah,
have to take care of you
yeah,
too. And so
yeah,
I do appreciate you sharing that and having that vulnerability.
yeah. And like that's why I kind of did the debriefs too. Like I told members, like I ended up getting a printout of my phone records from that night, and I had over 200 phone calls. So that's not including radio transmissions and in-person conversations. So I just tried to show people like I was focused on the task, but just how busy I was and some of the decisions I made, like I said, um, I guess after a critical incident, there's phases. I went through a phase where I was attacked a little bit because of some of the decisions I made. One of the decisions I made was I told everyone, text home. Just text your loved ones, let them know you're all right. Because what's going to happen is they're going to wake up in the morning, see the most horrible news in the world. They're going to try to call you or something, and you're not going to answer, and they're going to think the worst. So I said, just text home that I'm good. Just let your loved ones know. I had a member that was quite upset that I did that because two members weren't able to do that that night. I get that. I 100% get that. Again, I'm looking at 100 some officers. I made the decision that, well, that two officers were to stay with our fallen officers. They were not to leave. They were to stay there for the whole night until they got relief in the morning. I didn't realize that I had one of their classmates, one of his classmates was one of the officers. I assigned that. Again, I'm talking 3,000 people. I don't know who's friends, what classes are they're from. So it's a decision that I made. And after I thought about it and talking to some of my friends that were working with me that night, and I said, he actually told me, he goes, you know what, Lance, if that was you, I would want to stand beside you because your wife would know me. And I think it's better that I would be there. And he says, if that was me on the table, I'd want you there because that's just, he says, that's just it. So it kind of made me feel a little better about some of the decisions I made. The one thing I'm very proud of, especially in 2023, was one of the fallen officers' wives were working in our kind of communications area, but she was in our CPIC area where they look after like warrants and stuff like that. So she's not attached to the radio. When I found out she was working, I was able to send one of my staff sergeants over there as quick as possible. And we got to her before she found out through social media. And I was very proud of that we were obviously the worst news that she's ever heard in her life, but we were able to provide that like person to person and drive her to the hospital. So I was very proud that I was able to beat social media and get to her before she found out another way. So yeah, so that's why I kind of did the debrief and looking after yourself, how important it is. I still seek professional help today. When I was in that gang unit, they told us once a year we had to go seek professional help. And back in that day in 2009, it was a contest to see who could get out of there the quickest. So you would time your time in there because you'd go in there and we'd be talking and be like, "Oh, I was only in there for 27 minutes." And I thought this was such a waste of time because in the gang unit we didn't see stuff. We came to the scenes after everything was all said and done. So I didn't think it was appropriate that we were using that kind of resource. Boy, did I learn that we needed that. My whole career, I needed that. We have employee family assistance section. And I went and asked, because I was a duty officer for 3 years. I asked, can you show me how many critical incidents I've been to in my time? And it was 19. 19 horrific collisions, murders, abuse. Like it was just, and even they're saying, like, Lance, you need to take a break. We use the term shit bucket. I needed to empty my bucket. I needed to get off the streets for a year and just empty my bucket because it was overflowing. So I did that. I went back, and then now I'm promoted and kind of in a desk now and looking after two divisions now. But yeah, so it's just my concern now is to continue this path and training our officers and first responders to be prepared, like as best we can. Like you said, how that looks, I don't know. Um, like I said, I know we do a lot more training with recruits in wellness, and I just want to be a part of that going forward because, yeah.
And I think that, obviously all of the events that you've experienced are traumatic and you've learned along the way. But I think that in a way it becomes like your strength to help others. And you being able to share that with new recruits, I think that speaks volumes when leadership can be vulnerable and share their stories and say, hey, like I've been through this and these are my insights, these are my words of wisdom, and here's how I can hopefully set you up for success in the future. I think that that is such a powerful way to take the hard things in life and make them, I don't want to say beautiful because they're not,
Yeah.
but how can you make that a growth opportunity for, newer and up and coming officers? And it sounds like that's something that you're doing now, which I think is great. How, and obviously I know that, each event you've learned from and you've integrated things within your agency. What do you do now specifically? And how did that event shape the way that maybe you look at wellness or the organization looks at wellness? What are some of those specifics? I know you have debriefs and you have, family assistant programs. What are some other things? Like, do you have resources for talk therapy? And, I know you said EAP. I think you said you have
Yeah.
something like that. So if you can maybe dive into some of the specifics and maybe how that event shaped your wellness programming.
Yeah, like first of all, like before I even did the debrief, I didn't know what I was gonna say. Like I don't so unfortunately 10 years ago this year we lost another officer. He was shot and killed executing a warrant. So I reached out to that duty officer, the inspector. He's retired now, and I just asked him like, what should I say when I go up there? And he gave me the best advice. He said, just go up and say what's in your heart. Like, don't take anything scripted. Just say what's in your heart. And I did, and I think it went over a lot better than having a script. So I can say we've come miles and miles and miles from when I first started. So we have over 100 providers now that are accessible to members. So that when I first started, I think there was one or two that you had to attend. Now we have over 100 that it's easily accessible. You pick who you want to use, and from the ones that I've heard about are all phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, we have the reintegration program that is unbelievable, and in fact, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, our federal police service, they have the first leader to take and train on the reintegration program so she can assist other leaders through these events. Because of that, I've reached out and I want to be a part of that program too now so that I can assist any future leaders go if they end up going through something to help them through this program. So that those are first within Canada. We have our employee family assistance program, and we got to remember that we are a family as first responders, but everything that we do at work as first responders, as even though we say we don't bring it home, we bring it home. So we have to look after our families. I noticed when I was going through mine, my kids were saying like, "Dad, you're yelling a lot lately," and I thought, "Oh boy."
Mm,
So I needed to check in and make sure that I was doing all right. But we need to look after our families too, where now the Edmonton Police Service does that. But since that incident, now we have a program where it's a family liaison position. So if another officer were to succumb to uh, work related death, we assign a member to their family and they are that liaison person. So whether it be a news release or arrangements for funerals or anything, that liaison person liaisons with the family first before anything goes out.
mm,
And we found that that was a tremendous success, keeping just everyone up to speed and up to date on everything that's going on. So we've incorporated that now going forward, that we will have a liaison person for every family member. So uh,
I love that.
we've developed on that. I think it's a fantastic program. So
I love that. And one of the things that stuck out, when you said speak from the heart, as a leader, having authenticity, I think is so important. It's you guys are designed to sniff out the BS, you know? And
Yes,
so
yes,
when someone gets up there and it's scripted and it just sounds like they're checking a box and maybe saying what they were told to say or what they think they're supposed to say, comes off so differently than someone who speaks from the heart and has that authenticity. And I love that you also put an emphasis on family wellness and family support.
yes. We can't forget about them. They wear a lot of what we bring, like what we wear. So, um,
100%.
yeah, it's important that we remember them too. So,
Well, and I think too, like if you have a family at home, I mean, everyone has a family in some capacity, but
yeah,
you want a family to be able to go home to at the end of this career.
yes,
You know, like you want to be able to have this long career and then when you retire, have a long retirement and have a family unit intact after retirement if possible, you know, if
yes,
that's something that you can maintain. And so I think that it is important to be proactive about that and to remember that, you know, they are impacted by you and the job too, and how can we support home wellness as well. So I love
yes.
that.
I remember the morning when I went home. Of course, kids are at school, wife was at work. I had talked to her on the phone, but I remember going home to an empty house, and I did not like that at all. Um, I needed something, and it just I had not. I had my dog. Sadly, she passed away 2 weeks later from something, probably cancer or something. But I didn't realize how much I needed until I went back to work, and I was standing amongst some other leaders, and this young female constable, I think is only maybe on the job for 2 years, walked into the middle of this pretty intense group and asked me if she could hug me. And I looked there, I thought, yes. And she hugged me, and I could not believe how much I needed that. Um, I'll never forget her name, and I'll never forget her because, first of all, the courage to do that at that moment, and just her recognizing that that is what I needed. And I think that's where we've gone to from when I started in '02 till today, is how much we look out for each other. Um, like you could tell, like I said, going to parades, how much everyone was hurting, but members were stepping up, putting their uniforms back on so a squad could be off, the squad that lost 2 members. Like we had a lineup of officers that were going to come in and help everyone get through this. And even to today, like I said, members help each other every time. It's phenomenal to see the support we get internally, but also externally, right? So
Yeah.
um, I think we've come a long ways.
And one of the things that you said throughout our entire conversation was how much of a family you are internally. And I think that that's so important to remember that you're a team and you're a family. And the more you talk to each other and look out for each other, the more you can kind of identify, I think, when people do need something. And for that constable to have that emotional intelligence to say, you know what, like I think that he might need a hug right
Yeah,
now. And maybe she also needed a hug, you know, and that was an
yeah,
opportunity for you two to be there for each other as a team and as a family. I think that that speaks volumes to the culture that you've created within your organization.
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So I have two final questions for you.
Okay.
No pressure. Um, if leadership is listening to this podcast, what is one thing that you think leadership could do better to support their officers' well-being?
Leadership's changed completely, like I said, and you've also said, be vulnerable. You have to show that you're vulnerable. We I don't know how to say it. We can't keep leading from an office or behind the curtains, and we gotta lead. And I don't want to say from the front because that's a little bit dictatorship. We gotta lead from the ground. We gotta be there with our members through the good times and the bad times. I found like when I was going through my career, I was called a buddy boss. I was told that I would never go higher than a staff sergeant because I'm too approachable. I would love to talk to those leaders that told me that and show them where I've made it. And because of the respect that I get, I can ask the members to do anything and they'll do it because of the respect that I've earned, because how I lead. and I'm very proud of that. I think I get a little bit from my father when he passed away, when everyone went up and kind of talked. That's what they talked about, is how he was so well respected. And, they would go to the moon and back for him if he asked. And so that's what we need to change leadership. We need to show compassion. We need to be there for the members. I've seen the Portal Peak mass murder presentation. And one of the big learning moments from that is that their leaders never ever reached out to the members to see how they were doing. We can't do that anymore. We got to check in on the members. If we don't, like I said, we're at 10% of members off right now. What's the, like, if we have another event, like, how do we even police anymore? How do we provide service to the city of Edmonton if we don't have, we just, and how do we attract members to join? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I just, so I think as leadership, our leadership styles need to change. And I think we need to recognize that we have to change how we, and being approachable is not a negative, it's a positive.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Last and final question.
Oh,
What words of wisdom would you give to someone who is earlier in their career? Maybe something you wish you would have known earlier in your career or resources that you wish you would have utilized. What are words of wisdom you would share with someone up and coming or newer in this profession?
one thing I wish I did do was kind of keep a diary of all the good things. I
Mm,
kind of remember here and there of some of the great, fantastic calls I was on. There was a Christmas. I remember someone broke in the house, stole all the presents. I made it my mission for 2 days before Christmas happened, and we found them all. We rewrapped them and delivered them. And I thought, like, that's the stuff you have to remember when you leave here. I wish I would have kept a diary of all the events. I also I mean, not hardly. I also truly promote the wellness piece, and I wasn't when I started. Like I said, there was none. You were given 3 days off, get back in the saddle. The old saying of where you push everything down and sometimes you pour alcohol on top of it or just
mhm.
keep it all down, whatever you got to do to keep it down. No, like if you're hurting, let someone know you're hurting. And the other thing I tell everyone look out for everyone. I can't be everywhere. You can't be everywhere. So I try to tell everyone look after each other. So if you see that someone's hurting, either talk to them, tell someone that we can have, we have EFAS, several members that can just phone and say, hey, how's it going? And you want a coffee? But we got to look after each other. Like there's just no way that one person or one unit can look after the whole entire service. So I always tell people let me know of your successes, like the good emails. I also look at the highlights if anything does happen, and I'll send the message, hey, how are you doing? Is there anything you need from me or anything from the organization? And most of the time it's a minor thing, like a minor ankle sprain or that. But I always think like, is it minor? Like maybe to him it's a big deal. Now he's off for a couple weeks, and mentally is it going to be bothering him? So we got to reach out and we got to make sure that we look after each other. So that would be my best advice. In 2004, when I went through this event with the two teenagers that passed away, I remember an officer and Staff Sergeant Greg Scott, and I remember I was sitting in a room by myself. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know like what was going to happen to me. I remember breaking down a little bit, and I just remember him walking in and hugging me and telling me it was going to be all right. And I thought, oh, okay, so like he's a senior officer. He's looking out for me. Okay, I can relax a little bit, and I'll remember that to this day. So we got to keep on with that because I don't think we're done developing our wellness program. I think we're on a very good track and we've got a great solid foundation, but I still think that we still need to get better, uh, make it the program bigger, just going forward. I don't like to use just the term policing's changed. I think the world's changed. And I just think that we need to develop too. We need to change how we police. Our officers now carry probably more medical equipment than I've ever seen in the like because we're the first ones there that we have to do
Mhm.
treatments. Um, so we just the whole policing world's changed, and we just have to be prepared. Um, Again, for I've said this before a few times, like to prepare for the worst possible day of your life. and we got to get you through that. We got to get you through your career. I've had a phenomenal career. I, like I said, I'm going to hopefully walk out here the same person I walked in. Um, and that's what we got to do. I've noticed that this new generation of police officers, like when I joined, it was a career. You joined, it was your career, 25 years, you leave and enjoy retirement. You hear terms now like this is just a job. Like I'm just, I'll see what it's like 5, 10 years, then I'll do something different. We just got to see if we can retain. Like we're having a problem in first responders world with retention
Mhm.
because of all the mental um, stressors. So we got to figure out how to retain people in these professions going forward. Because, like I said, I think the whole world's changed and it's not done changing. So
Thank you. Those
rambled
are
on there a little bit.
excellent, no, excellent words of advice. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your insights and thank you for spending the last 45-ish minutes with me. I do appreciate it so much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you and you reaching out to me through Nathan there. I think this is a fantastic platform to get the message out to as many people as we possibly can. So, because this is the only way we're going to learn and this is the only way we're going to look after each other. So, yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, I really
no, thank you.
appreciate that. And, we talked about this before, but that's the goal. How can
Yeah,
we have meaningful conversations that change the world, and
yes,
break stigmas and even if it's at the very, very least one person's listening to this and knows that they're not alone and that they have resources, I think that we've done our job and we've won. So I
yeah.
appreciate you, joining me and being a part of this. So, oh, and there goes the dog in the back that I told you about. She made it this whole episode, but
Yeah, it was excellent. So,
well,
yeah,
thank you so much. I appreciate
yes, thank you. All right.
it. Take care.
Okay, bye.